So backlog is
Yeah. Create a flat. Yeah. So just
depending on what kind of planning you're doing.
consultation type.
I get to see a lot of people that I haven't seen in a while working in this community. You hear about all these great Agile leaders that are doing some great things, so it's nice to get us all together, and Agile for Executives is a great reason. I think the only way we're going to get this movement moving faster is to get more people involved. So when I see clients that I work with and their peers and their colleagues coming, I just think this is going to go viral. It has gone viral, and the more we can get that message out and the more people we can get involved, the better we all are.
Let's begin our time together today with a thought experiment. Imagine that instead of being in this meeting room, that we're in a time machine. And our destination today is to travel back to central Pennsylvania in the early 1700s. We are in a new world with a completely different set of new rules. Well, believe it or not, this is exactly where we find ourselves today. The top 10 jobs of 10 years from now don't exist today. Turns out, we do not have to engage in a thought experiment. We don't have to step into a time machine. We are still using 19th century management technology to handle the business problems of a post-digital world. Our whole metaphor for the industrial age is the whole world is a machine. And it's become part of our unconscious belief system. You can't solve any one in isolation. You can only solve complex issues holistically. You could argue we've had accelerating change before. You can argue we've had escalating complexity before at the dawn of the industrial age. Wasn't around in any of our lifetimes, but if you go back to the people then, that's what they were feeling. It was quite a transition from the agrarian age to the industrial age. This third factor has never existed before in human history, and it is the game changer. It is what will rapidly render traditional top-down hierarchical management as obsolete. And it is this: ubiquitous connectivity. The community solved the problem in 10 days. What had eluded the world's best and smartest scientists in 10 years was solved in the hyper-connected community in 10 days. Because if you're going to be innovative, people have got to have the freedom to disobey the CEO. They build the new management model that will become the dominant model in the wiki world. It is the collaborative peer-to-peer network. And your ability to drive extraordinary performance is almost guaranteed if you can do this. It's going to be messy, but it'll be guaranteed compared to this. Traditional planning as we know it is a limiting factor. That is a great piece of management wisdom from the people at Google. Individuals and interactions are more important. and process tools. There's a lot of wisdom there in a one-page document. There's no one person in charge. The 3 leaders are expected to collaborate together. Agile is in the sphere of this peer-to-peer network management, which I call wiki management, or management for the wiki world. But radical management, holacracy, lattice organizations, we're going to talk about those in a little bit. All these different forms of peer-to-peer networks are all ways in which we can practice wiki management as contrasted to traditional command and control. The difference between legacy companies and wiki management companies is that the wiki management companies live and die by the customer. It all starts and ends with the customers. The purpose of a business is to create customer value. Now, do you think they care about shareholder wealth? You're darn right they do. Just about everybody in this room is a knowledge worker. Here's another game-changing phenomenon. Knowledge only grows by giving it away. It's an abundant resource, not a scarce resource. If you hoard it, you diminish it. Hoarding knowledge is like saying, I'm going to preserve my muscles by not using them. So on some level, we all know it. They quickly got 2/3 of the market, a position they've not lost a point of market share in. That's why it's so important to tap into us, not linear analytics. Bring in data. We need sophisticated data. But the diversity, collective intelligence, or the collective intelligence of a diverse group of people is a highly predictable window into where the world is going when it's moving fast. It's a different form of intelligence. It's non-linear, but empirically sound. And this is what we discovered. And so nobody leaves this room and the 20% of the disengaged is going to kill this thing. Everybody's going to be engaged. Remember, management is about creating the future. The problem with traditional financial numbers that are the prime focus of senior leaders is it's information when the game is over. Like scores in a sporting event. Once the final score is in, there's not a darn thing you can do about it. If your job is to manage the future and the world is moving fast, you can't wait for the financial numbers to know whether you're succeeding or failing. I think most of you have participated in the Net Promoter Score. The Net Promoter Score is simply this. It is based on one question. The question is, how likely are you to recommend our product or service on a scale of 1 to 10 to a friend, a colleague, or a family member? And when you answer that question, it's always a 10-point scale, and they never ask you how likely are you to do it. Because you have higher standards for your friends, families, and colleagues than you do for yourself. Cliche is going to holacracy and dropping bosses is because he wants his company to be like Gore. But we walk out there, what are the 5 most important things we need to do to make this happen? That's our shared understanding. And how did the millions of parts get done? By everybody knowing what the 5 most important ones are, they can connect what they do to that. By now you know we have in fact been transported to a new world with new rules. We are all now permanent residents, not of an 18th century agricultural paradise, but of a 21st century hyper-connected world.
I appreciate that. I think your speaker was really quite inspiring. I took a lot of notes. I saw a lot of people doing the same. I think I saw a lot of thought going on, which is always pretty stimulating.
I've never thought of another option outside of hierarchical structures. Connectivity, that global sharing of ideas, it gave me a lot to think about and see what I can bring back to my company as benefits.
I learned things I already knew, and I put it together in a cohesive set of things that I could actually put words to, because he put words to it. So I kind of knew a lot of the concepts already, and he did a good job of explaining and making it real.
So really, it was kind of hearing somebody's perspective on systems change and management change outside of the Agile arena. So I mean, yes, the tie-ins between the Agile Manifesto and some of the stuff that he was talking about today are really powerful. One thing that I found is that Agile in large enterprises has been there. People have tried it and failed. And personally, I believe that the failure point isn't the team level, right? So there's thousands of people that can make these high-performing teams doing Scrum, Kanban, and the stuff outside in the system is what prevents them from succeeding. And so, hearing anything that I can find that can help move the needle from that middle level of the system to kind of explain to them, hey, here's a different way of doing it. Like with Dean Leffingwell's Scaled Agile, it brings Lean into the mix with Agile. And what I found is that talking to executives, you talk about transaction cost and Lean, and they don't check out the same way they check out if you say Agile, because you say Agile, they're thinking software development, and that's the teams, that's not us. Whereas here, the sponsorship augments the keynote. I mean, the amount of time that we got with him, right, and we're not done yet. That is the value here. And if the monthly events are smaller versions of this, totally think it's worth it. That's a quality community meeting is one where you get more than you get more value than you expect, right? And definitely feel that way today.
All right, we need to be getting the final product sheets together. Just go with the best you got.
Okay. Rob, we have a question.
Yes. I think that if we go back there, I don't think we have to decide how to do it, but decide the key elements. Look at that. What are the elements of the approach itself?
The last thing that shifts is the willingness to go to your peers as a designated buddy type system. So you know who you go to. You can go to anybody, but ultimately you have to go.
Finalize those lists. Don't worry about their being perfect.
Are you okay with this? Yes.
Okay, our time is up. Our time is up. Once again, I want to apologize for giving you unreasonable time. For something like this, you really should give people about 30 to 45 minutes. Keep in mind, we have condensed what is normally done from 2 hours to about an hour. All right? Now, what I'd like to do is all the presenters take your flip charts, and I want you to put them on this wall down here. And then everybody come down here, because we're all going to work around this wall. All right, everybody should come to this end of the room. In the interest of efficiency, we'll do this. So, we've got now 6 up here. Which table would like to present first?
So we're table 4. We talked about creating a flat organization.
We can take 1 or 2 clarifying questions for Tom. Clarifying questions only.
We actually didn't really get into the details of the budget. It's true. It's true. Yeah, you might have that problem.
1 more question.
Well,
All right. Who wants to go next?
Collective intelligent wisdom of the crowd. So we think that encouraging people to speak up their ideas. There are some shy people, but they may have great ideas.
Mission and goal, and without having managers dictating who does what.
And collective ownership, which again seems to me a little bit like the shared part of shared vision. So we're big on vision, team 5.
They have a different perspective, but they don't know how things quite work. So being able to leverage the learning that the organization has already developed.
That weird with us. So as we talked through it, it was more about that there's probably some different skills that are involved with building product versus kind of figuring out where we want to be in the market. So this idea that we need to have a destination that we're moving towards, but there's a caveat that comes with this is that we have this willingness to acknowledge that that might be wrong, and that we have this ability to be moved from kind of our position or what our mission or our vision is. So that creating feedback loops around us reevaluating that.
It was 3 or 4.
Okay, the rewards can drop off. That's a nice
Let's put 3 and 4 together.
So we can put 3 and 4 together. Yeah, well, yeah, but.
And you say there's something else that you maybe say?
Collective intelligence and wisdom, similar.
That's the same.
I think we have more in this direction. You okay with the result?
And team compensation.
Keep that. This is handled.
There's a top one on.
There's a tough one.
Do you agree?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll take this one off.
Oh.
And pass those around. Okay, everybody gets one strip. Now, what you're going to do, and this is very careful, all right? You can vote your 4 dots any way you want. You can put 4 dots on 1 item, 4 dots on 4 items, 4 dots on 3 items. The only rule is don't put a dot on an item that you don't believe is really critical for coming up.
Rod is an example of the kind of speaker that we are able to tap into. And Rod was just so incisive. He just hit the nail on the head, made everything so clear that I feel a lot safer about the future because there are people thinking about it. The value I got was in the exercise we did, because I saw it starting to converge, even though he kept apologizing how we couldn't do it in this little time, but yet it did converge. So that to me was exciting.
Do we have our results?
Why create an event or why participate in a series that's geared towards working with executives to learn the kind of thing that you're spreading the word about?
Because executives determine the operating systems in their organizations, and if they're going to be innovative, they need to understand that innovation is not a function, it's not a department, it's an operating system. In a type of setting like the seminar that we had today, they learn about this very different structure, the structure being the peer-to-peer network, when all of their career experience has essentially been within top-down hierarchies. Well, now that we live in a hyper-connected world, a world after the internet, you can't escape the influence of networks. Networks is what's driving the rapid pace of change. Networks are allowing unusual competitors to come in. And so if business executives want to remain competitive in this very different, very rapidly changing environment, they need to understand the dynamics of a network, because it takes a network to beat a network. A lot of the processes in networked organizations are counterintuitive to traditional managers because they're non-linear and they process information in non-linear ways. However, they're more effective, which is also counterintuitive. Collective intelligence tends to be a more reliable form of intelligence. The other thing is, with the right processes, you can rapidly put it together. And that helps to give an organization speed. And speed is what you need to keep pace with the fast-changing world. Business executives today face a very big problem, and they're not going to be able to get away from it unless they behave differently, and that is that the world's changing much faster than their organizations. If they don't close the gap, then the organization gets left behind. If they can close the gap, then the organization gets to shape, not necessarily control, but gets to shape the change in the larger world. This is a paradigm shift. And paradigm shifts sometimes take time to fully get your arms around. So I would hope people would leave with questions. Maybe after they absorb it for a while, see how it sits with them. And then if they say it's making sense to me, then do what they can to move their organizations so that they can operate more like networks, shift their operating system to be like networks. But most of all, to position themselves so that they can be innovation incubators because innovation is the only sustainable competitive advantage in a fast-changing world.